Hello and welcome to episode 35 of Area Control Bros.
Welcome.
We're getting closer and closer to reaching my age in episode numbers.
I guess we've surpassed mine.
Yep.
Today we're talking about a game which is not an area control game, but it is a game that is similar to other games we've talked about in the past and other games that we really like. Um, Namely Netrunner. And this game is Sovereign Fall of Wormwood.
Sovereign, Fall of Wormwood.
Um,
Wormwood.
Yeah, it's a game that is definitely inspired by MTG and Netrunner kind of the most obviously.
yeah.
And um sorry for the video shuffling around there. I think we had some sort of crazy connection thing. But anyway, yeah, this game is like it's basically designed to be like a commander slash Netrunner, but it's pick up and play. So the complexity is designed to be lower than like having to know, 10,000 cards in Magic or something. And it's also designed to avoid kind of what I would consider to be one of the biggest weaknesses of Netrunner, which is like, how the hell does the deck building work? Netrunner has always had like a very fun core system, and there's nothing quite like running ice in like Netrunner on both sides, because as the corporate, you're like, they do not know it is all a bluff, or like they don't know about the crazy ice in the back, or whatever. And as the runner, it's like exciting because you're like, let's see if we can do it. But in this game, but the downside of Netrunner is kind of like they've got like a point system. It's like you can be in your faction, but you can take some cards that are out of your faction, but not too many cards. And like those cards have a point value. And it's kind of like it's a little bit hard to parse, you know?
It
Um,
it definitely is. They've tried to address that. Some of the fan expansion stuff. Project Genteki, I think, has released some like, here's just a deck for every faction with like various releases that they've done. But it's never been like part of the core product, where it's like this is definitively Netrunner. It always has been the idea that you got to deck build. And so having something like this that as the core product, as the starting point has, hey, we've got the decks in the boxes, pick it up, just go do your thing. You can bring in 3 people, you can bring in 4 people, something you can't do with Netrunner, and it's going to feel pretty good still. I mean, yeah,
yeah, so I think that's a big strength of the product right off the bat is that like strength of the product. I sound like I'm some CEO. But strength of the game is that I think it's designed to be more like a board game. Like you don't need to be like, all right, let's set aside 30 minutes before we play to like do some deck building or something. And like realistically, I think most people there are definitely some Netrunner diehards out there, but most of the time these days, like if I was going to sit down and play Netrunner with somebody, we would probably be like, let's play some Netrunner. Let's just find some cool decks online and then play the game. Because I'm mostly interested in playing the game. Like it's not that the deck building isn't interesting, but I like playing the game more and I want to get into that. And I like that this game kind of lets you get into it. And it's not as complicated as Netrunner, but for a game that's designed to be played for 3 to 4, I pretty much agree with like almost all of the streamlining. Like I think all the things that were cut from sort of Netrunner in the process of sort of making this game as an amalgamation of like multiple games, but I think certainly most influenced by Netrunner. Um, I think the things that they cut make sense. Like I agree with them because in the interest of like moving the game along and no one player turn taking forever, like those kinds of concerns. Like there not being like it would take too long if every time
yeah,
you attacked somebody you had to run all their ice. Instead, making it kind of like a drive-by of your column versus their column of units feels like it's better to just keep the game moving that way. Like I like
yeah.
that for sure.
And some more natural points for that stack to blow up, right? And then, sort of progress the game where it's like now this person's in such a better position because whoever was the dominant force before might have just had all 3 of their units get blown up in a big way, and now maybe they're less of a problem, or maybe the person that blew them up, didn't even get anything off of them, but the next person is coming in and being, opportunistic about it, running their hand right afterwards. There's all sorts of interesting things that kind of happen in this one as a result of the areas where they've simplified things, right? You're no longer creating, some unlimited number of lanes, not unlimited, but
Many.
many lanes like you would in Netrunner. You've just got the two lanes, and it's either your
Sit.
citadel, which is your build
Yeah.
lane, or your hand. And so, um, I feel like you keep most of the intrigue of that, like, I'm going to in Netrunner, I'm going to like build up my ice and create like this really defensible position, and then score stuff off of it or like protect my hand if I'm worried, this or that. You keep most of the intrigue of that in a much, much simpler system, which I think, to your point, Will, is very important once you start adding more players. Because in
Yeah.
Netrunner, you can stay fascinated with like, just the one other person's turn, and you need to because they've got all sorts of stuff going on. In this one, oh man, there's so many different units that come out on the board, and you do need to stop and read them. That the rest of the game has been pared down a little bit makes that feel manageable.
Mhm. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Ben. Were you ready to say something?
Oh, I think they do a pretty good job with the it feeling like like the Mexican standoff, where you're like worried about both people and like not letting either of them get too far ahead. I do think that I would have to play it more to really feel out how that dynamic works, but it does a pretty good job of making it so that you don't just gang up on whoever's weaker, because if you just steal a bunch of echoes from like somebody's hand, then it's like not very attractive to attack them because they probably don't have anything anymore.
Yeah, and it's not like you're going to attack their hand just to like make them discard a card when you can't find an echo. Like that's not a good use of your time. There's a finite number of turns in the game, and like you can only attack once per player turn. And so like that attack really has to be impactful. It has to be looking for echoes for yourself or undermining somebody else's like ability to wage war, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And making somebody discard one card knowing they have no echoes is like not a good use of your time. And but I agree that's a really good I think that's a really good mechanic, which is like they don't redraw before their turn. So if like the guy in front of you attacked them, their hand, you have no reason to attack their hand now. And I do think that like this game is very explosive, especially if you play to 10 points and not 12. So like if somebody's at 6 points or something, it may be like if you're used to a normal game, it's like, oh, they're like around halfway to winning. No, they are one attack of
Yeah.
somebody's hand away from winning the game if it goes through and they get like a big breach.
Right.
And so you have to be very mindful of like everyone's ability to do that and think about how you're going to protect your hand. And I will say, compared to Netrunner, protecting your hand in this game I think is more important than the lanes, because I think in Netrunner the ice is like really important for protecting like your the agendas and stuff you're building and the like the graveyard, which is not targetable in this game. But in this one, the hand is super important, especially because in this game, due to you drawing at the end of your turns, you might draw a bunch of echoes. And so you always have to think like during your turn, like, well, when I'm building these things and playing these cards, I might draw into a big batch of echoes. I need to hedge against that possibility by being ready to protect my hand. And I think due to that, that lane feels like the main lane most of the time. Because
Yeah.
there is the like early build two echoes thing on turn one strat. But besides that, I think building echoes in the forge is pretty risky. Like it definitely feels more risky the further the game goes on.
Yeah, I don't think you're scoring the majority of your echoes building them, right? Like compared to with Netrunner, where it's like one person is scoring their agendas by building them, and the other person has to steal them. Well, both players can steal them, and it just ends up being the case that most of the agendas, when you look at or most of the echoes, when you look at your stack at the end of the game, are not going to be your own, right?
Yeah,
Like you might have two
definitely.
of your
Yeah.
own or something,
Yeah,
and
two, maybe four at most.
yeah. And it might be that, okay, now I'm building up my Citadel's defenses in order to get over that last hump and finish the game out or something like that. But I think predominantly, just the fact that you're comparing, maybe scoring two echoes in a turn, right? You get your two gold to build things with. You can build two echoes. You might have a little bit more economy later on, but you can either build those two echoes, hope nobody takes them, or you can be going and trying to get echoes out of people's hand, which we've seen turns where by happenstance are getting six echoes, getting seven echoes. We haven't seen eight, but
Not yet.
not quite yet. But like, I mean, that's most of the game right there. And you do have to get lucky, and you do have to break through and know when to do that. But
There was a game it could have been eight. I had eight in my hand one time.
yeah,
It was like,
At that
uh,
point, you really have to either protect your hand or go all in to like, okay, now I need to protect the forge. But yeah,
but sometimes it's like, well, with what?
yeah,
yeah, because if you
exactly.
have eight echoes in your head, you're just boned. But like, yeah, yeah,
If you're in a position where you've lost like all your units and you've drawn into a hand of echoes, you are in a lot of trouble. And I guess
yeah,
it's I guess we keep saying echoes, but I guess just for people that don't know how this game works at all, echoes are victory points in this game. The normal game is first to 10, the long game is first to 12. And I guess just as a side note, just like Twilight Imperium, it may not sound like two more points is a lot, but it kind of is. It really is. But anyway,
yeah.
the echoes are kind of a way to. So Netrunner doesn't have lands. I think echoes are kind of a compromise between Netrunner and MTG in the sense that it's this thing that is not really a playable card. So it's a little bit like lands in MTG where like you don't want to have a hand of just lands, but the difference is echoes can score you VP very efficiently. Um, they only require one turn cycle to build basically because you build them and then on your next turn they'll be complete. And unlike every other type of thing you can build, like units and facilities and that kind of thing, you get the gold construction resource talents back as talents. For anything else you build, they come back as the flip side of the token, the silver side, which is significantly less useful. Um, it can be used as health for units and like for other activated abilities and for reflexes and stuff. So it's not useless. It's just that it can't be used to build new stuff in the forge, which is really important. Like your
Yeah.
economy, your sort of economic power is kind of determined by your golds per turn. And at base, every faction in the game is generating two of them per turn at the beginning in the growth phase, which is kind of a little bit like the MTG untap phase. And the factions, I guess this is where we can start to go to talk about how the importance of economy in this game, but the factions that have good economic cards that allow them to increase the amount of golds they generate per turn in whatever way. Maybe it's units that can do it, maybe it's facilities that can do it, maybe it's an innate ability of their faction because every faction has a little innate like activated ability that they can do that's asymmetric. The factions that can improve their economy in some way I think, are very strong. And that's like a really, really important tool to have in the game, whether to have innately or to draw it from the deck.
Yeah. Yeah. And that I think would include not just getting more gold, but also being able to advance your builds in other ways
Yes.
through the forge. And I think the number one reason that that is the case, that that is so powerful compared to say something that can flood out a bunch of small units early. Um, it's got a lot to do with the armor in terms of why flooding units isn't very good. Um, and it's also got a lot to do with the redraw. I mean, the fact that you are always going to draw up to eight cards, no matter how few cards you have in your hand. If you have the ability to put out more than just those two cards a turn, you're seeing a lot more things, which of course is going to be very powerful because you're going to get to your key deck pieces that maybe are generating you even more economy or um, putting more health on your units and allowing them to win more fights and, potentially get more echoes as a result. Very important.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that like in the balance of a game design, typically you're looking at two main resources in a card game. One is the ability to play cards, the other is the ability to draw cards. Those are kind of the two big things. Like if you look at any card game, Magic has mana and card draw, Slay the Spire 2, which just came out, or Slay the Spire 1, it's like, of course, like, also you're limited by what is essentially mana. Like I think it's 3 points per turn at like base,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then card draw is also important, but card draw is not good unless you have the ability to play those cards you just drew. And as Blake put, like the economic power in this game is consolidated into one thing, basically, because the ability to generate more mana, in this case, more gold talents, is also the ability to draw more. And so you have
Yeah.
to understand that that kind of power to generate the ability to play more cards also results in just getting more cards to play more cards, which you're able to play because you have the economic power to let you play those other cards that let you draw those cards. And this is also it's also the case that the reflex cards, which some of them are really good, the more cards you draw, the more likely you are to see those cards and use them on other people's turns, and they're kind of like instants in MTG, and they can kind of disrupt your opponent, or in some cases be some sort of cool economic benefit, like turning your silvers into gold or turning your silvers, putting all the silvers on a facility onto your citadel, which normally you could only do that one of those per turn. Sometimes that can be really impactful, like we saw with the Undercity Brotherhood one with what was that card called? The super
I'm not quite
Enforced
sure.
stims, I think. It
Something.
was like
Yeah.
mandatory stims or
yeah,
something.
it's something like that. That card was really
Sounds
really
right.
strong.
Yeah. I think important to mention because when I hear you saying that, Will, my mind went to, well, why doesn't the game feel more snowbally than it does? Because it feels like there's a lot of things going for this game that could lead to a big snowball effect, and there is a little bit of that. Oh, you get your big old stack of guys, and you're able to more efficiently get echoes, and maybe you have more of your economy out as a result, all this stuff. Well, if you are drawing more cards, you're also putting a little bit of a target on your back because now you've got a fresh hand that could be more echoes, right?
Yep.
And so, you have this incentive to protect your hand with all your units. Well, now everybody has an incentive to come into that hand and potentially kill your units and set you back a little bit. That isn't to say that there isn't any snowball effect, but there is definitely some good incentives within the game to knock other people down a peg. You can't just be playing to get echoes. You do need to be playing to stop other people as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. No,
And
I
and I
think
guess sometimes that goes hand in hand. You're trying to stop them by
yeah.
blowing up their stack
Stop
and
them
maybe
by
getting their
taking
hand.
echoes. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. What do you guys think of the game's theming? Because it's not something that like I think art is really cool, but it's not something that I feel sticks in my mind as well as something like Netrunner. I think Netrunner has like such a solid theme that feels really cool. It feels like you're like an 80s hacker movie or something, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but like I don't know. Like I think like a lot of the theming around this one is like the echoes are like fragments of lost knowledge of humanity. It's like the texts of William Shakespeare or something.
Yeah.
You know, it's like we're trying to
It's funny.
I don't know.
They've
Yeah.
got like a dirty porn mag that was like on the ark that landed on the planet is like, a relic of Earth civilization.
Yeah.
An echo perhaps.
Right.
But I mean, it's going to be hard to like argue that most any game is more thematic than Netrunner. Like it almost is unfair to expect a game to be as thematic as Netrunner because of how like integrated it is with the gameplay. But I like the theme of this well enough. I think it's cool. The art's great. I mean, it's I think it's a lot of commissioned artists, some of which I was familiar with before, just for like wallpapers and stuff. But
Yeah.
I think the art's really great. It feels like a lot of the factions have like a pretty distinct personality. You got a
They
little,
do good with the flavor text, that
yeah,
helps
yeah.
add the small ways that they can bring you into the world.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I prefer the art and flavor of this to like modern Magic. I mean, by a pretty significant amount. Like, I think they did, knocked it out of the park with the art and everything and all that stuff. It may be a little bit nebulous as to like what exactly an echo is and like what having 10 of them really means. in terms of the theme. I guess it's like we now have enough Earth knowledge that we have the ability to be supreme on this planet. Like we just have
Yeah.
accumulated a technological advantage
It's
in
the
some way.
cultural victory
It's like a
in
cultural victory in Civ or something. Yeah.
yeah.
It's like
Uh,
now,
I don't know about, what you prefer the theming to Magic. Do you just not like comics set in New York?
I mean, like don't make me say it because I will say it, which is that, I don't think I'm ever going to give modern MTG that many points on art when we compare it to like late 90s, early 2000s art and style, where it felt like it was unique. Like you can
Yeah.
look at the old MTG art and it's like that looks like old MTG art, like
Yeah, yeah.
Therese
It's
Nielsen,
cool.
look, Rebecca Guay, like that kind of stuff. You look at it and it's like, wow, that looks really cool and like looks very, it brings you into the setting a little more. These days, like I
Yeah.
don't think it
Now
really.
now they're doing three sets in a year that are just set in New York City.
Yeah, yeah, and that's
It's
like
weird,
Knuckle.
man.
I attack your Doctor Who with my Sonic the Hedgehog. Like we're way past like the
Yeah,
ability of
yeah.
like the ability to be integrated into the setting. That's a whole nother topic though. But anyway, as far as this game goes though, I think it's cool. I actually took the time to read the lore book, and I thought it was well enough. I don't think it's like I mean I like sci-fi and I like cyberpunk, so like I'm already there, but. I still don't know from reading the lore book exactly what the fall of Wormwood entailed, actually, which
Yeah.
is the title of the
Hmm.
game.
That's what I was gonna say. I feel like I would like the theme more if the name of the game wasn't Sovereign Fall of Wormwood, because it makes me expect something of that?
Wormwood already fell before the game started, but it's kind of like maybe the game should have been like Battle for Absentinion, excuse me, because that's kind of what's happening. But we're,
Echoes of humanity or
Yeah, maybe
something.
anyway, it's not a big deal, but maybe the subtitle should have been something different with the theme in mind.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
but overall, like the game looks really nice. I think the deck boxes look good. Very light on components this game. Like it's almost um it's basically just the cards and the little tokens, the
Yeah.
little the talents, and that's it. That's the whole game. So very component light, easy to travel with. If you wanted to just bring like your favorite faction and a friend's faction and a little baggie of tokens, you can just bring it on a trip or something. Just make sure your friend does not bring the Undercity Brotherhood as their deck.
Yeah. A little powerful, the Undercity Brotherhood, huh?
I guess should we talk about balance a little bit?
Sure.
Yeah. I
Um,
think important to mention, I some of this with the balance talk is not first impressions. We've played this game a number of times, but obviously this game, we were just looking at the Board Game Geek, and there's like a post from like 7 years ago where someone is saying, "Oh yeah, this game is very late in its development cycle. It's very far along." Like 7 years ago, and then it released in 2025. So who are we to come in and say, "Oh, the balance is all off?" But there does feel like there's some concerns. I think most of the decks are in the right range.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I think that, obviously you're never gonna get something that's like perfectly balanced. Um, it seems like it's probably good enough. Like I think in the game where it felt like you snowballed and it was like, oh, these guys are really good. I was like out ahead in the lead in the beginning because I just had like a bunch of cheap stuff that I was able to get out that was really good at breaching hands. Like it was like turn three, I had like, like the ability to breach for like somebody's entire hand. And so like I don't know, it might be like a little bit of a tempo thing with some of the factions. Like some of them might just shine a little bit earlier in like the game.
yeah. I think
Um,
the better you know the factions, maybe once we played all the factions more, you get a better idea of like if I'm playing this faction, I want to end it like early because like that's where this faction shines, and that way you can be not in a position where it's like we let the late game faction get the late game. But I think
Yeah.
we're still at the stage where we're like feeling out the factions for a little bit, and at that point, it's kind of like maybe it's not clear to you that you need to be acting like now, and like being more aggressive with maybe rushing your queue or whatever. Um, and but I do
Yeah.
think that even all these things considered, I still think the Undercity Brotherhood is just too strong. And I think the main thing is that many factions in the game have facilities that are very strong. That's not unique to the Undercity Brotherhood. There are many strong facilities in the game. Some even stronger than the facilities of the Undercity Brotherhood. However, what they have is they have two cost facilities, and you can't really overstate how powerful that is because two cost in this game is is so fast and cheap to get compared to everything else. Like that's a build and a rush, or it's a build and you basically go to your next turn, it's already done without any further investment. Many other facilities are at least three and sometimes up to like five or six for an effect that might be slightly stronger. But the problem is that the opportunity cost of that facility not being on the table for each additional turn that it wasn't on the table, well, the two cost one was on, is enormous. Like even just one extra turn of having those things on the table can be huge. And we're looking at like maybe three extra turns with them on the table sometimes compared to other factions. And that can create an enormous advantage.
Yeah.
I think in a 1v1 game, and I don't think that like any other aspect of their game plan is weak either. So I think that they just seem overpowered. It's also worth mentioning that I think there is an innate advantage to factions whose like unique ability they always have on their leader is a silver token and not a gold one, like a drone and
Yeah.
not a talent, due to the
You
fact
want to
that
use your gold for other stuff. I mean, you
yeah,
just have to use your gold to build. If you're not, then I mean, I don't see it.
yeah, but the point is like there's not really much opportunity cost as putting a silver and doing something. And like yes, those effects will typically be weaker than the effects where you put a gold on it, but the opportunity cost is so much lower. And you can be like, you're just going to have spare silvers lying around probably. And the ability to use them, and in the case of the Undercity Brotherhood, the ability to use it to like get something out of the graveyard or the scrapyard is can be incredibly powerful, especially at an early point in the game where it's maybe a 50-50 shot of getting what you want. In late game, it's a little trickier because you might have like 10 things in there and you're probably not going to, but you might get something useful, but maybe not what you're looking for. But like early game, like the ability to get some powerful reflex back that you played early or getting back a unit early that you had to
Yeah.
sacrifice,
Maybe
it's,
someone even like breached your hand, didn't get an echo, and was like, "Oh, I have to discard this powerful card." They can't even really deny you in that
yeah,
way,
then you
you
just get
know?
it back.
So they have a strong ability. They have at least three different economy based two cost facilities, to Will's point. Economy based two cost facilities.
Yeah, let me look. We keep talking here.
Um, and so one of them, you put two golds on it. They stay there the rest of the game, and it's going to give you an additional gold income every turn, right? That's paying itself back in two turns. Another one that does the same thing with silver. And then they have a very powerful one that, for the cost of one silver, can advance the any of your, construction projects by two for one silver. And then that silver goes away at your upkeep instead of coming back onto your map, which Ben has pointed out can sometimes be an advantage because in this game, you can't activate something during your turn if at the beginning of your turn it had any of your tokens on it already, which normally you would just pull one token off per turn. And so there's this natural, like, ooh, I might like, use multiple tokens on this one facility or on my hero power, and then it'll take multiple turns before I can use it again, but I really need this ability right now. Well, what's meant to be a downside on this facility that for one silver can advance something for two, which is extremely undercosted. What's meant to be a downside can sometimes be an upside because you might use like two silver in one turn. It's going to go away, and then the next turn you can use more, right? And in the case of the game that we played, with some of the other economy options that the Brotherhood has, there were turns where I was advancing out my entire hand using this ability, and then just getting it all back with the reflex that was mentioned before that pulls all the tokens off of one's facility. And then
Good
you can do it again, all this. But
good memory, Blake. There are three two cost facilities in the deck. There's also two cards that are I'd almost include as well Husk Harvesters and Geneforge Nurses, which are two cost units that also have a significant economic
yeah,
advantage attached to them. I think it, like I said, I think the difference you can't really overstate the difference, the power of like a two cost economic card versus like a something literally anything over two cost.
Most of them are five cost from
Yeah,
what I've seen,
a
you
lot of
know?
them are certainly more than two.
Yeah. Yeah. So in any event, that does provide quite the advantage. Not something to, completely discount. I think Ben's point about, well, how early can you get in and steal all the echoes is very relevant when it comes to the Brotherhood. They have some units that can hold up in the early game. A lot of their units are either going to die very easily or actually require like additional upkeep costs that frankly are hard to pay early on. So you might be able to come in and just steal all their echoes. But I would ask the audience, does that sound like a very fun game at that point? If nobody ever, you know, to me, I would rather see people build out their whole thing rather than like the meta when the Brotherhood is in the game to be like picking a faction that can, you know, win on turn five or something. I don't know.
Hard to say. I think, but I think in general, like overall, there are two things that work in favor of the game's balance, even with I think with this one faction being particularly powerful. One is that it's a multiplayer game, so you can
Yep.
always team up on people. And I think the other thing that's working in the game's favor for balance is that it is just incredibly explosive. So maybe the
Mm.
Undercity Brotherhood has some enormous economic advantage, and they have an insane unit count because they're just building more than everybody else. But there's somebody else to attack,
Yeah,
and
there could be someone else to attack. Yeah.
maybe that means you score your last echo from that player, and it doesn't matter that the Undercity Brotherhood has some big economic advantage. Like you don't need to deal with that in order to win, which is relevant. I think if you're playing 1v1, it would be a bigger issue. But if
Mm.
you're playing at 3 and 4, I do think that any individual faction's power that's kind of out of whack is a little bit less relevant because it may come down more to like your strategy in the game and less your faction's like power level, as it were.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah,
Do you give ratings?
I think
Sure.
so.
Yeah, I'm happy to.
I don't have anything else.
Yeah, could start us off. I think I'm gonna go for a 7 out of 10 for me from what I've seen so far. I think that the game on the side has a bit of a lie on it, which is the play time. But maybe if we all got a little bit more experienced with it, we'd get toward that play time. But I think the play time on the side of the box said like 20 minutes or something. 20, I think it might have just said 20 plus. I don't know.
I think it's 20 to I'll see what it is. It's
Oh man, I can't read that.
is it
20
20
minutes
minutes per
per
player.
player. Okay, that,
I mean,
but
other than the last game we did, that was true.
yeah,
to be fair, that's probably play time for the 10-point game.
Yeah,
yeah, I'm sure.
interestingly, they say in the rule book something like going to 12 is meant to add 30 to 60 minutes. Like it was some crazy number. And I remember reading that and going, no way.
It
Um,
definitely did though.
it
Yeah,
did, although we didn't get to we got to 11 points like the turn before it ended, and even getting and we weren't to 10 before that. Anyways, sorry to
Yeah.
cut you off, Ben.
no, you're good. Yeah, I don't know. It seems like a fairly solid game. It's not something that I don't know. I like sci-fi too and stuff. I don't know if it's like I'm also not like the biggest card game guy, so like I don't know if I'm really itching to come back to this, but I mean like if it's busted out, I'd have fun with it, I think. You know?
Yeah.
I don't know if I grok it as well as some other games, especially since it's like oftentimes with card games, it's like
If you
I'm not going to see my whole deck, so I don't know what it's doing, you know?
If you grok it,
Yeah. What?
I think that word has it's kind of like you can't say feeling spacey like Kevin
Oh
anymore. You know what
gosh,
I mean?
dang
mm,
it. Yeah, the freaking yeah. I'm not online so much anymore.
I'm just kidding with you. I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
Okay, a 7 from Ben. That
sure.
seems reasonable. Yeah, I'm a little bit more of a card game enthusiast, and I think my score will reflect that. I'm going to give this one an 8. I think that it's filling a really, really cool niche. I wish there were more games that kind of did what Netrunner was doing. And I've said that time and time, before this, and I always meant by that a game that was asymmetric in its card play. But this game does something a little bit different. It's not necessarily asymmetric objectives for the card players. You can score your own echoes, you can score other people's echoes. It's not doing that Netrunner is doing. It's taking like other really cool aspects of Netrunner, and it works. It's really exciting for me. I do still want to see more, asymmetric win con style card games like Netrunner, but it's cool seeing one like this that kind of makes it symmetrical and still brings a lot of the cool stuff from Netrunner in. And I think it does a good job of it.
Yeah, I think I'm closer to Blake's rating on this one as another card game enjoyer. I think an 8 sounds right. I think it might move up if we play it more and kind of get a better feel for the factions. Because the number of factions, I think it's 10 factions in the game. It's a lot. And like you need quite a few plays to get a like feeling for like each deck, really. And I think it's possible the balance is better than we think. And it's just like I said, we don't have a great feeling of like the optimal way to play each. To be fair, the way to play each is going to be limited by your what you're drawing and what your
Yeah.
mulligan looks like and stuff. Because there's not really many tutors in the game. I think there's at least one that I saw that actually does let you tutor a card, but not many in the game. So you're mostly limited by what you draw. But you are going to frequently have a hand of 8 and only have the ability to do two things. And the decision of what two things you do is going to impact the game a lot. So like you do, it's not like a game that's on rails or anything. Like you do have a lot of decisions to make. And of course, the decision of where you're going to attack and like the paying attention to the information on the board is all pleasant to me. Like I like those decisions. I like what they've done with the changes they've made, sort of from the Netrunner core system, are all positive for a multiplayer game. The core of this game is really good. I think the score for me could certainly move up if this game is like expanded in the future, maybe a little bit of rebalance, maybe a little bit, more interesting factions, we'll see. But overall, like I like it pretty well. I mean, yeah, maybe it's an 8.5 in the future. I don't know if it'd be difficult for it to hit a 9, and I think the main reason is for me that I wouldn't like go past an 8.5 on it is because that it's like it's a strength and weakness of the game, which is that you are limited, like I said, by like what you're drawing.
Mm.
So even though the game isn't on rails, you don't really ever have the ability to sort of dictate your own strategy in a strong way, like in some games that we play. Like if we're treating it as a board game, if we compare it to like a game where it's like, I want to do this on my turn, like if it's a 4X game or something, you're not really in the driver's seat that much because you are limited. It's a singleton deck. So like you may not see the cards that you wish you could be seeing at any given time.
That's not totally true. There's 20 echoes.
Okay, well, you will see a lot of echoes.
Yeah.
But you might not see a
Yeah.
crucial reflex or crucial facility, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Anyway, yeah,
Sovereign.
so overall, like it, good game. Nice job. See you guys in the next one with Shadow Moon Syndicates, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Bye-bye.